Sound check. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sound check. Good afternoon. My name is Steve Goldstein, and I'll be the moderator for this debate. The Citizens Clean Elections Commission is the sponsor of this event. As the state's voter education agency, Clean Elections is the official sponsor of Arizona debates, so voters have the opportunity to hear directly from the candidates, ask questions on the issues that matter most to them, and vote informed. If you're watching this debate live, you can submit a question at any time over the next hour or so, emailing debates@kc-a.com. That's debates@kc-a.com. You can also text
SWB audio capture not registered
8350. You can also call at 480-937-1297. We may not get to all audience questions, but we'll certainly do our best. Tonight, we'll be hearing from the City of Mesa's two mayoral finalists. To the candidates, you'll have a couple of minutes, 2 minutes for your opening statement and 1 minute for a closing statement. You'll also have up to 2 minutes for your responses to questions. We're encouraging an open exchange of dialogue between opponents. If you feel the need to respond to another candidate's comments after they conclude speaking, you may do so. I might limit responses for time management purposes and will remind the candidates and the audience this is a respectful, courteous, and professional environment. Our goal tonight is to connect candidates and voters so our electorate may vote informed. The Mesa mayoral candidates who are with us tonight are Mark Freeman and Scott Smith. The order in which the candidates will speak has been determined by alphabetical order by last name, starting for opening statements, and closing statements will go in reverse order. And Mr. Freeman, that means you are up first with an opening statement. You have 2 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Goldstein. Hi, I'm Mark Freeman, a Mesa City Council member here in the city of Mesa. One of my great attributes that I enjoy is one of my grandfathers on my maternal side was the founder of Mesa. So we've been in Mesa for 146 years. I've grown up in an agricultural family here in Mesa, Arizona, and we continue to farm and ranch today. However, when I was a young man, a few years back, I got hired by our Mesa Fire Medical Department and retired as a captain paramedic with our Mesa Fire with over 31 years of experience. We're a great family. We have 9 grandchildren. We have a son. Our oldest son is a major in the United States Air Force and serves today, and appreciate his service with 5 children. And then a son that's in the financial arena, and then a son-in-law who's a veterinarian, and a daughter who's a school teacher. So we're well-rounded. I love Mesa, and I can share with you Mesa is a great place to live. I've seen it grow and develop from when I remember as a 30,000 population, clear to 520,000 population today. So Mesa is a great place. I'm proud to represent District 1 in the city of Mesa as a council member, and I'm running for mayor. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. And now, Mr. Smith, you have up to 2 minutes for your opening statement.
Thanks, Steve. And thank you to the Clean Elections for this opportunity. I like Mark, I'm running for mayor because I love this city. This is an interesting process. As Steve said, we're down to 2 finalists. This is like a long, very long job interview. And you, the voters, are the search committee. We started with 5, now there's 2 of us. And as we go through this discussion, you'll notice that there's a lot that Mark and I have in common. Other than being both of us stunningly good looking and charming, we're both longtime residents of Mesa. As a matter of fact, we're only a year apart in age. We both graduated from Westwood High School. We have a long history and a deep love for this city. We also have served in city government, I as mayor and Mark now as city council. But I think what you'll find out is that while there are many similarities, there are also differences. There are differences in our background. There are differences in our experience. And there's differences in our vision and how we would conduct this office. So as we go through, I invite you to judge this or look at this as the ultimate job interview. Who do you believe is the best candidate or the best qualified for you to run a city, the 35th largest city in the country, with over 140 square miles and over 500,000 residents that has seen a lot of success, but a lot of growth, and now encounters big city problems and big city opportunities. And I invite you to look at it and inquire that, to look both of us and judge each one of us as to our relative backgrounds, experience, and leadership capabilities. I hope that at the end of the day, you'll look at me with my experience and the vision I have and choose to vote or select Scott Smith to be next mayor. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Smith, thanks. Gentlemen, let's start off. Mr. Freeman, let me go to you on this first question, but Obviously, Mr. Smith, as I mentioned, we're going to have rebuttals. We're going to have back and forth and replies. Let's talk about public safety. How safe right now is the city of Mesa for residents? There are some people who will say that when a city grows as successfully and rapidly as Mesa has, crime may accompany that, public safety concerns may accompany that. How safe do you think Mesa is, and for residents and visitors as well? To you, Mr. Freeman.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. You know, ironically, I had a conversation with our police chief just 2 weeks ago on this exact topic. And Mesa is a very safe city. In fact, we have the lowest crime rates compared to our neighboring communities, especially down south, our largest community. And we always stand resilient in our community to address crime. And we are currently increasing our police force. It's ironic that on the policing side, ever since COVID, it took out a lot of all of our police force, our public safety personnel. And consequently, we are striving today to bring us up to par. And so in April of 2025, we'll be up to about 347 officers. And we lost about 40, around the COVID time. So we're having 3 police academies a year just to compensate for that. So the other thing is obviously I'm a retired Mesa fire paramedic captain, and firefighting is an extremely important concept and medical delivery. We're currently building 2 fire stations. One's a combined police fire. Another one's under construction. We just finished up in East Mark Cadence area with Station 221, and we put an electric fire truck in there as well. And then we're building 3 new fire stations due to the voters to help address our response issues. We also stood up with ARPA funding the Real-Time Crime Center, the second one in Arizona, which is an important thing, is state-of-the-art. That is a phenomenal real-time crime center that we're using all the latest technology. So the emphasis for me as a public safety guy, lived and eat and breathed it for 31 plus years, is primary importance. That's why people live in Mesa. That's why employers come to Mesa. That's why our neighborhoods are so safe, is because we have a very resilient public safety department. And I'll stop there.
Okay, terrific. Mr. Smith, what do you think about that? How safe is Mesa, and what do you make of what Mr. Freeman said?
Well, there's 2 things. First of all, public safety is the most important thing a city does. Over 3/4 of any city's budget is directed toward police, fire, courts, public safety. And keeping our citizens safe is not only important, it's essential to grow a community. So from a crime standpoint, Mesa does very well. As a big city, we are a safe city. But you also have to look at how people perceive their city. And I think for the most part, Mesa citizens perceive they live in a safe city. My vision for Mesa is that anyone who lives in the city of Mesa can walk out of their house and have confidence they can stroll around their neighborhood, send their kids down to their neighbor's house, and feel safe. And we need to make sure we do that. Like any other big city, our police department has been challenged in keeping up with the number of personnel. We're not having the challenges that other big cities are, that I talk to other mayors and read other things where they are falling short. They're falling very far short of their staffing. We don't have that total problem, but we still have a challenge to hire the number and the quality of men and women in our public safety. I think that's a real compliment to our police department, which has been seen as not only a regional, but as a national leader for many, many years. We did things like CompStat. Our forensic lab is regionally recognized as the top. We need to make sure that we continue to invest to make sure that these academies that Mark is talking about take place, but not only that they take place, but that the men and women who are in those academies are the very best, that we continue to have the reputation of being the place, the public safety career that the best people want. And that's what I will focus on, is making sure that you not only are safe by statistics, but that you feel safe so that you will feel comfortable living in your neighborhood, but that businesses will feel safe in investing in our community.
Freeman, I can give you up to a minute if you want to respond.
Well, I do. And thank you, because I'm chairman of our public safety committee for the City of Mesa Council. And so myself and the other board members, we analyze our stats every month. And I'm also chairman, I just got appointed chairman of the National League of Cities Public Safety Crime Prevention Committee. and that sees crime and fire responses throughout the whole United States. And so I champion all of the things that Mesa is doing cutting edge in throughout the United States. One of the things that is really important is when we have crime that is high in certain areas, we do our ComStats, our department, when they have the briefings with the patrol officers, they go out and address crime. I'll give you a quick example. We had a lot of fentanyl being drug dealers, fentanyl in West Mesa. And so we got word of that. And so we stood up, our police department stood up a task force, including obviously Mesa, Tempe, Chandler, and other government organizations. And they went in for 6 weeks and they did a task force in the area. And pretty soon, it was really cool. The social media came out and said, the drug dealer's social media says, please don't do business in Mesa, you'll get arrested. So that's how fast we work. We have the finest, we hire the best of the best. And it may take us a little bit longer, but our staffing on our fire apparatus and our stations is up to par today. We're just, working hard and keeping our police officers, our patrol officers. But just because you see the black and whites out there, we have many undercover officers that are out in our community every day working hard, from domestic violence, street crimes, or SWAT teams, our other task force. They're out there working, very resilient. Thanks, Steve.
Mr. Smith, if you want one more minute, we can do that, and then I'll move on to the next question.
Just real quick, I'm very, very pleased with the ComStat. ComStat program was implemented while I was mayor the first time. And I saw it firsthand as to the change that it made and how we can address and target crime in our community. A great tool that has been used and followed by many others around the country. And it was great to watch that be implemented and start to work when I was mayor the first time. So I'm anxious to work with our police and fire departments to truly build them to a higher level than they already are.
Mr. Smith, let me start with you on this one then. What's your perspective on the city ballot measure that's asking voters to approve a $90 million bond to enhance community safety? We can define community safety, I suppose, in different ways, but do you support that bond? And are there certain priorities you would like to see related to that bond?
No, I do support. I support it, and I know Mr. Freeman voted to put that on the ballot, and I support him in that. Investing in public safety is, as I've said, probably one of the most important things we can do. I know there are people who don't like debt, they don't like bonds, but with the fast-growing city and with the challenges that we have to invest in the physical facilities and the equipment that our public safety personnel needs to truly do their job. The fire stations that Mark mentioned would not be possible without us taxing ourselves to float bonds to build these stations. And we've built many in the last 20 years to keep up with the rapid growth that we have. One of the most important measures in public safety is response time, both on the police and fire. My vision is that, first of all, you're safe in your neighborhood, but also if something does happen that is unfortunate, that when you pick up the phone and call 911, that there is a highly trained public safety professional at your doorstep within a reasonable amount of time. And there are standards, both police and fire. You can't do that unless you have the proper facilities to put the personnel close to the action and that you have the proper equipment to get them there. And that doesn't happen without bonds. And so I think not only the front line, but also the support, 911 centers, call centers, dispatch, all the other things that go into making a full public safety system are necessary. And I think it's one of the wisest investments. To many of my friends who say they don't like the concept of bonds, I believe as a conservative that people who benefit should pay for things. I have no problem with property owners and those of us in households who benefit from what public safety and police stations and fire stations, fire engines bring to us, that we pay for those. And I think that's what bonds do. So I fully support the public safety bond.
And as Marcus Scott said, you, in fact, on the council voted in favor of the bond. So I probably won't ask you, do you support it? But what are some priorities you'd like to see attached to it if possible?
Well, Steve, the priorities are this. Number one, we're upgrading and enhancing our 911 call centers with the bond that we're asking for. And number two is we are putting smaller fire stations out in what we call our gap coverage areas to reduce our response times. Because as a paramedic and as what we're cross-trained and trained, if there's a cardiac event, every minute means muscle to your heart. Or if you're having a stroke, it's the same with the brain and aneurysm. So we're going to put smaller units and stations in more neighborhood and outlying areas to reduce our response times to get people the help they need medically as fast as we can. Other priorities is we have fought, well, as a council, we take this very seriously when we put a bond package out there because we know it comes at a cost. But I like it because that cost is spread out to everyone and all users that participate of the bond. So when we build a fire station, we build one, they're there for like 50 years. And we're renovating a fire station at Greenfield, south of Broadway, that was built in about 1976. And we need a new station there. So we're currently going to demo that station and build a new one. So anyway, we're always in the progress to uplift and keep our neighborhood safe and secure. Thanks.
Scott, would you like another minute for that?
No, we can go on.
Okay. Let's, Mark, let me start off. There are a lot of things we're going to get to, and forgive me if I give you guys whiplash as we sort of go, wait a second, he's following this topic with that one? That doesn't make any sense. Anyway, Mark, let's talk about transportation in and around Mesa. First of all, do you support the sales tax extension, Prop 479, that Maricopa County voters will decide on next month? Do you think those priorities that have been included in this extension would make sense for Mesa?
Steve, that's a good question. I'm giving that a lot of thought. I'm somewhat neutral on that right now because I still am understanding all the implications to it. But let me give you this. I know transportation in our community is very important. In fact, the city of Mesa, this past year, we wrote, and I'm going to get the number, we wrote a check for $21,300,000 for public transportation in the city of Mesa. That's how important it is between the light rail and our bus routes. And so having transportation for those in need in our community or those who want to is very important. 479, again, I would like more emphasis on that to upgrade our streets and our freeways more so. People are driving more than they ever have. And that's one of the things that I have witnessed out on not only the campaign trail, but just in my district. People want better roads. They want to get there safely and securely, and they want everything done in a respectful manner. I think they're willing to pay for that, but we need to not compress our roadways and keep our roads open. With that, I'll just end with that, Steve.
Okay. And Scott, we'll get to some broader transportation questions, but specifically, let's talk about your opinion on Prop 479, that extension.
I am 100% in favor of Prop 479 for this very reason. It focuses money on areas that people want it to be focused on. There's a lot of information going around. 2/3 of the money from Prop 479 go to freeways, streets, roadways. And I don't think there's a person in Mesa that has not benefited from the investment made by the half-cent sales taxes, both from 300 and Prop 400, to build the 202, the 101, State Route 24 interchange, then going into Pinal County, the widening of the Superstition, widening of roads and intersections in Mesa proper. That's where 2/3 of the money go to. 1/3 goes to transit, but, and this is a very big lie that's being advanced by opponents of Prop 479, zero money in Prop 479 goes through building new light rail, extending light rail. There's no money in it for that. Right now, the light rail is ended at Gilbert Road. It's not going to go beyond Gilbert Road. And there's no money in Prop 479 to extend any more light rail. And that's been a misinformation that's perpetrated. I think with that, everyone should be pleased that the vast majority of the money from our half-cent sales tax is going to go where it has benefited this region in a way that I don't believe any other public policy we have done in Arizona in the last 40 years has had as large of an impact to our daily lives, our economic prosperity, and the growth in our community as the building and expansion of our freeway system, our roads, and yes, our public transportation. And 2/3 of the money goes to freeways and roads, and 1/3 goes to public transportation, but none to the expansion of the light rail system. That seems like something that everyone should be able to get on board with. So I fully support that.
Mark, a minute on that one if you want an extra minute.
Yes, and the reason we have employers today is because of our vast and great road networks and our freeway connections, which we're improving all the time. And especially in the southeast part of Mesa, where it's growing so fast that we need connectivity within our industrial and commercial growth. And I-24 is a good example with that extension. I've driven out there several times over the last couple of months, and I find it very successful because then you can access the 202, Red Mountain, and Santan freeways. But our employers and people within our community, they need good roads. Transportation is key, and that transport people. Just on a side note, Steve, we have 166,000 people who commute out of Mesa daily for work. We have about 116,000 people that commute into the city for work. And why is that? That ratio is a little skewed. According to our balanced housing survey, you may ask a question about housing, I'm sure you will. But the reason is we want to raise the ratio up that more people stay in their community and work because of the good roads and transportation that we have. And that makes an economic difference, and it reduces the cost for those people who have to commute. So I'm going to leave it at that. I'm in support of transportation. I like 479, the merits of it. I'm still analyzing it. Thanks.
And Steve, if I could,
yeah,
Mark, you did a really good advertisement for 479. All the connectivity that you talked about is directly related to and a product of Prop 400. And all 479 is an extension of that half-cent sales tax. You mentioned State Route 24 interchange. One of the last things I did as mayor was that interchange was actually not supposed to be completed till around 2020 or 2021. We used a very creative financing mechanism to advance the completion of that by almost 8 years. What that did is that it made the connectivity you're talking about to all those businesses. It created the growth that you see down in the East Mark area because all of a sudden they were connected. We did that not only to advance that by 8 years, which accelerated the economic growth, but since we contracted that project during the Great Recession, we built that project for almost $100 million below budget. So we got the benefit of the advancement and the increased economic opportunity. We saved $100 million, which enabled ADOT to plan and MAG to plan, and the extension that you see now beyond Ellsworth Road is in many ways a product of the money we saved because we were very aggressive in our transportation planning and very creative in the way that we did it. So I hope you get off the fence on that one, because to me, 479 is a no-brainer if we want that connectivity to continue.
Steve, I'll just make a comment on that. The transportation issues not only extend to Mesa, but the town of Queen Creek actually reached out to the city of Mesa and said, we are really struggling on transportation issues in our community, getting people off of Ellsworth Road. So could the city of Mesa help with an intersection at Signal Butte and Germain area over by CMC Steel? And so we helped and progressed and built a brand new intersection there for the town of Queen Creek to move people out of their community. So 479 does help. Scott, I understand what you're saying. I have some critics out there that, I like to listen and make a pragmatic decision on it. But I'm willing, and my thought is we can help other communities be successful with their own economic development and the things that they do, and help them commute with their commute, because Mesa has a lot of great places and people need to get to them, and they're using their own transportation to do that. So roadways, freeways are all a great asset. So thank you.
Gentlemen, let's move to our first actual live viewer question. And Mark, let me go to you on this one. I'll start with, what would you do as mayor to address the significant air traffic and noise increase in Northeast Mesa generated from Falcon Field?
Sounds like somebody in my constituency. You know what? And in all fairness, we monitor all that traffic. We have every aircraft has a GPS on it, and we have all of the flight patterns of everybody coming off the flight field at Falcon. And I do recognize that, there are times, especially on weekends, the flight school is in operation well during the week and weekends. And we ask them to keep their traffic as low as possible and as high as possible so it won't interfere with whatever's going on in the neighborhoods. But I recognize there is a noise issue, and we have a great director over there and staff at Falcon Field to manage that. And so as the complaints come in, we recognize that. I think most recently I heard jet aircraft, and I haven't heard a lot of jet aircraft at Falcon Field, and they are noisy. But however, it's a public facility for aircraft, and I support what's going on there. Can we do a better job? We're analyzing that all the time. So thank you to that person asking the question.
Terrific. Scott, your thoughts on that as far as noise at Falcon Field?
I have a lot of thoughts as a pilot who for many, many years owned a plane and flew out of Falcon Field. I'm very much aware of that. Also, it hit the sort of the apex during my first term as mayor. And I was very, very integral in forming the first fly-friendly program where we negotiated with flight schools to do things like limit their flying to certain days. I would like to, when I should I win, to revisit those programs. I now live in an area, just moved about a year ago, where I'm much closer to the flight path than I used to be. I used to be on the south side of the airport, and now I'm on the north side of the airport, and I'm very much aware of the airplane noise. We live by an airport, and that's inevitable. We live by a growing airport, the one that has significant economic activity. But there are things the pilots can do. There are things the airport can do as it relates to flight paths, as it relates to negotiating and talking with flight schools on scheduling and things like that. And I'd really like to look at that when I get in, because I'm very much aware of the challenges you have with living by a growing, thriving airport where you want economic activity to thrive, but you also have to be cognizant to the impact it has on the neighborhood. And finding that balance is always difficult. I'm looking forward to that conversation and revisiting something that I dealt with many years ago successfully to find that balance between the needs of the residents and the needs of the airport.
Steve, I'll just
go ahead.
Yeah, recently I met with the FAA director of the Western region, and we talked about the noise issues, but more especially over Sky Harbor. I mean, in my backyard, I can look directly up the air and I can see the underbellies of the aircraft approaching Sky Harbor. And I like it. Not that I'm an aircraft enthusiast, but I like the noise. I'll hear it sometimes based on the aircraft engines in our home. But I think of all the people traveling safely in our community. I think about people who are learning how to be a pilot. I have a brother that's a pilot. I've been in private aircraft. Kind of scares me a little bit, but good thing Scott's not driving, I think. But anyway, I just understand that's an economic engine in the aircraft. Now, back to Falcon Field, we've talked to the flight schools numerous times to try to keep their hours low and their pilots aware. One of the things they talk about, they teach these new pilots, is take off and you get up and you turn your engine off, and then you restart it. And that's part of their training. And people think, oh, that plane's going to crash. Well, it doesn't. It hasn't.
You just scared me, Mark. Thanks. You scared me.
But that's part of their training. And just that, you hear a noise and then you don't hear it and you look in the air for an aircraft and then it takes off again. And, it's just something Mesa inherently has done. Falcon Field was done by World War II with our English pilots. And it's such a historic airport. It's one of the first ones in, the Western U.S. to provide aircraft. And so it's something that historically Mesa wraps its arm in. And I just like Falcon Field, and I'm sorry about the noise. I can say that, but we'll do everything we can to mitigate it and keep it as noise-free as we can.
Well, I think we're all anticipating the next sequel to Top Gun starring Mark Freeman and Scott Smith. So I think we're all going to line up for that one.
I'll be on the
Gentlemen,
motorcycle, Steve. I'm not going to be in the aircraft.
Okay. Yeah, Scott will be above us in the aircraft. The things we talked about so far all connect with economy and growth. Let me ask you one broad question. And Scott, let me start with you on this one. Mesa's grown so rapidly over the past couple of decades into clearly one of the most vital cities in our state. I mean, with that question, what are your priorities and what would they be if you were back in the mayor's office for managing growth into the future? Because one would think that there's a certain level of growth that's a challenge, but then once you get beyond that, the challenges probably multiply, I would think. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, thank you, Steve. The challenges multiply if you allow them to multiply. What I found in both my experience and also in watching other cities and how they handle growth is you need to make sure that you don't lose sight of what's most important for your city. It's all too often commonplace that people fall in love with growth. They start touting housing starts as a measure of their success, which is the absolute worst thing you can do. The number of new residents. Oh, aren't we great? We had 10,000 new people. And if you focus on growth itself, then you find that you lose control of growth. I like to focus on quality growth. We're Arizona. We're Mesa. We're an attractive place to be. People will come here. They will invest here. We need them to do it in the right way. And I think one of the observations I've had with the city is that I think in many areas, especially down in the southeast, that in some ways the city has lost focus on growth because growth came, especially after we enticed Apple Computers to invest $1 billion. We finished upgrades at Gateway Airport. We finished the freeways and Ray Road. All of a sudden, people wanted to start investing, and it became very easy to succumb and to fall in love with investment. We were excited when Apple came, and all of a sudden when Meta and Microsoft and Alphabet and others just came, and people all of a sudden wanted to invest when they hadn't invested in areas like that. Eastmark started growing, and then Northeast Mesa was growing. It's easy to get caught up and lose track that, hey, wait a second. If things happen too fast, we're going to lose control of the quality. And if we lose control of quality of the growth, we lose control of the quality of the neighborhood and of the city and of the lifestyle. And that's one of the complaints I've heard the last few years is that we feel like things are out of control because we grew for growth's sake. My emphasis would be on staying there and go, listen, I love growth. I love investment. I love new jobs, but there's a right way to do it. And I look at investment that's made. I travel around this country. I make it a hobby and a habit to study growth and what people do. And if someone's going to build a data center, I love the investment in the data center, but make it attractive. Let's have a data center that fits in with the neighborhood, that people aesthetically it fits in, traffic-wise. I've seen it done in other communities. I know we can do it here. Don't just allow the growth for growth's sake. Don't allow just residential just because we can get 100 new houses here, let's do it. No, let's ask people to build to the same standards of quality that they do in other neighborhoods. Having been a home builder, I know that quality doesn't have to mean cost. You don't have to be expensive to build aesthetically pleasing and well-planned development. And that's what I would focus on. And my experience is both in office as a mayor, but also as a home builder and a developer for many, many years. I know how this industry works. I know how the growth industry works. And that's what I would focus on as it relates to growth.
And Mark, let me ask you about managing growth in the future to make sure Mesa remains a place that has high quality of life.
Well, thank you. One of the things I just got news on is, not that it's breaking news, but Wallet Hub just ranked Mesa as the 25th best run city in the United States, and also having the 5th best economy out of 148 cities. So that tells you how much Mesa has grown and managed our growth here. And as a council member, I've been a part of that. And what I've really focused on is working collaboratively with my council members on making sure that our growth is managed appropriately and that we have the best part of Mesa. Mesa is going to grow, and the future of Mesa is going to depend on one thing. And I can tell you that that's going to be water. And water is a focus that I know in my portfolio. I'm currently a farmer today. I farm and buy hundreds of acre feet of water, and water is going to stimulate the growth in our community. We can grow all we want, but I want people to be reassured that Mesa has the best water portfolio in the East Valley. and actually the whole valley because of what we've done in managed water today. So the future growth in our community has to be balanced, and that's what I've focused on. I have a balanced housing plan and that I've worked on because the growth in Mesa, we are missing a middle class of homes out there because they're not attainable to those that need them. And we'll probably talk about housing, I'm sure. It's an important concept in our community, and we have to have a balanced housing plan, which I've worked on extensively. So between water, the appropriate growth, matching the character of our neighborhoods, and that's what I focus on every time at a council meeting. I have over almost 8 years of experience as a council member. And my wife keeps reminding me, well, Mark, you worked for the city of Mesa for 31 years. So I have a combined, institutional knowledge of about 40 years worth of experience knowing Mesa. Thank you.
And Steve, if I could.
Of course, please, Scott. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the reasons I'm running is I was consistently hearing from people, especially in Southeast Mesa, high growth, fast growth areas, Northeast Mesa, that while they are happy in the city of Mesa, they were very dissatisfied with the manner in which the city and city staff in particular managed the growth. They felt it was haphazard. They felt it missed places. West Mesa tells me the same thing. And especially if you look at Southeast Mesa, where you have the success out there, and yet there's a huge gap in things such as high-end entertainment, restaurants, and other places. And I'd heard from people that the process to attract and to get those things was off base. I heard from many businesses, small businesses, large business developers. Well, the city retained a consultant recently, and to address this issue, and the city's own consultant chastised the city and said that one of the reasons why there was not the investment being made in high-end entertainment and others was because of problems and issues with planning, zoning, the processing of plans, delays, inconsistencies. This is the city's own report. So there's a real problem with the way that the city bureaucracy in particular, is managing the growth, and that quality has suffered. And we need to, my experience in the industry and before, where we implemented a program called Facilitate, Don't Regulate, where we made city departments more partners with our citizens in success as opposed to regulators. That needs to be looked at. And the first thing I'll do as mayor is to bring people together and say, listen, your own report says there's issues. Let's talk honestly about that. Let's get better. Let's get back to facilitating. That way we can have the kind of quality growth that our citizens will appreciate and will feel confident in.
Mark, I can give you 1 minute to reply to that.
So this past week, I spoke to our development, services director, and he encompasses all the planning, the zoning, the chief building official. And he told me after meeting with the Arizona League of Cities that Mesa has been very resilient, responding to all the planning and zoning issues out there. And we do a very excellent job in modeling that and making it better for developers. However, we do have room for improvement, and we're working on that. And I continue to champion and make sure that all the zoning and actual developments are compatible with our neighborhoods and our current commercial and retail areas, and industrial especially. So it's a work in progress. Mesa is doing a very good job, and we have cut down the bureaucracy in getting stuff done for our community and our developers to make it more efficient, because time is money. Thanks, Steve.
And Steve, if I could, one quick thing. Mark, I appreciate that, and the city staff believe in that, but your own consultant differs from that, and their own review says that. And I've heard from many that that's not the case. And it's sad. Probably the most sad thing I heard was when one person I've worked with for 20 years said 10 years ago, Mesa was their place of choice to invest, and that they will not come here anymore because they have so many problems. There are real issues that need to be addressed, and we need to be open and honest that getting better really needs to be taken seriously, because your own consultant says there's real problems in the household, and that's happened in the last 8 to 10 years, and we've regressed instead of progressed.
We're making progress now, Scott. I want you to know. Thanks.
Mark, let me start with you on this next one. You've mentioned it a couple of times, so I want to give you a chance to talk about housing affordability, That is obviously a problem, not just in the Valley, but across the country. Give me an idea or two or something that appeals to you to make Mesa someplace where you have great neighborhoods, but you also have places that are more affordable for a growing population.
Yeah, so there are several different avenues I could take on that. First of all, I want to take the simplest one. One thing as a council member, what's attainable for many is that 3 years ago, the average home was about, I'm going to use round numbers, $280,000. Today, it's 58% higher than that. So now we're looking at almost a $460,000, $80,000 home. And for most people, the average medium income does not, for your beginners, they can't afford that. So we got to look at other avenues for attainable housing. One of the city is facilitating is accessory dwelling units and having ADUs available for people can build those if they so choose at their homes. The other one is, I think, is a really small one, but it's very large, is manufactured homes. I've worked really hard with some of our mobile home parks back in the day in the 60s and 70s. The older mobile homes, trailers are aged out. So they're putting in these beautiful manufactured homes that are attainable. And some of the price points are about $140,000 and up, but that makes it attainable for workforce housing. The other thing I've really championed in my district is patio homes and a mixed use of homes, whether it's middle homes, executive housing, as well as single family homes. So I've worked with developers over the last 8 years to do that. This is going to be a work in progress. And the problem is out there, Steve, is the wages have not kept up with inflation, and the housing has cost quite a bit more. So that makes it out of reach for a lot of people. So we have to look at other ways. And so as a city, we did a balanced housing survey, and we have that information how we can implement and make housing more affordable. And I don't like really the word affordable. I like the word attainable, so that people can attain their goals and expectations in their community.
And Scott, whether it's affordability or attainability, what are your priorities as far as that goes?
Well, there's no doubt there's a problem everywhere in the country with our younger generation, those in the middle class or workforce, being able to move into owner-occupied housing. We never thought in Metro Phoenix, where we always prided ourselves as being the anti-California, you can actually afford to live here, that we would become like California, and that our children and our grandchildren are looking at that and saying, I don't know if I can dream for that. That's such a sad place to be. The cities, especially the city of Mesa, we can't solve that overall problem because there are forces that are much larger than us. But what we can do is we can make a dent. We can create a niche. We can do things in our area to expand that. This is a simple supply and demand issue. And since the Great Recession, having been in that industry for many, many years, I can tell you I understand the whole cycle of how new housing comes onto the market, how it's processed, how it's financed. And that has been thrown out of whack ever since the Great Recession, both from a regulatory standpoint and also from a financing standpoint. We're just not building enough housing units to match the demand. So our supply is way under whack. What can we do as a city? Well, we can make a dent in that. And Mark throws out a lot of things we can do. The first thing is we need to be very, very innovative and open to solutions. ADUs, manufactured housing, those are all good. We need to go beyond that and look at our basic building codes. We have codes that are for safety that are important. We also have codes that are by preference. We need to look for more efficient and cheaper, at least less expensive ways to build safe homes. But we also need to look at our land. At the end of the day, land is the number one factor in the ability to build affordable housing. And we have a lot of underutilized and empty land, much of it not zoned for residential right now. My idea is to take some of those parcels of commercial, underutilized, unused, let's say a strip center that is boarded up, is no longer used, and not just simply change that to residential zoning, because once you do that, all of a sudden there's a bidding frenzy as all these home builders bid the price of the land up, and then you've priced yourself out of the market. But to work a deal with the landowner that says, listen, you have an underutilized piece of land. You're not making any money off of it. You can't do anything because commercial obviously doesn't work here. I'll make a deal with you. I will let you change that to residential if you will do this. Put a cap on the price, make sure that it's affordable, make sure that there's things done. That way you get a use of your land. It's an incentive that you otherwise wouldn't have. It makes new land available, but the land isn't open for a bidding, so all you can do is get rich by selling the revised zoning, but you're going to build owner-occupied affordable housing units. Or when I say, you say, and I'll agree with Mark, I like the term attainable. Attainable housing, because we've now created an increase in the land inventory, and we've worked a partnership with you that ensures that attainable housing can be built. I haven't worked out all the details, but I think those things like that can be done. And we may only make a small dent in the overall problem, but if we can make a small dent and we can move 1, 10, 100 families into a house that they otherwise wouldn't be in, then we've succeeded.
Mark, I give you 1 more minute on that.
Well, my goal, Steve, would be working with our council members as mayor to find out solutions that we can get for property. I believe in free enterprise, so the rights of property owners are essential, and we need to work with them. However, not every infill development will be successful. And we have championed, and I have championed, taking some of our underperforming shopping centers and create zones, and whether it's condominiums, mixed-use housing, allow attainable and workforce housing for your first-time buyers is essential. We need to keep, that's why I said the ratio back, 166,000 people leave Mesa, 116,000 come back into Mesa. We need to change the ratio. We need to keep more people here in our city. And we can do that by making common sense decisions in our building practices and our building codes. And we're actually looking at it today. We're looking at ADUs, how we can lessen the restriction. People could come in basically with a plan they draw up themselves and get a permit to build an ADU. ADUs are not the solution. We need to look overall at patio homes, townhomes, manufactured homes, ADUs, and other ideas. So a lot's out there. We're exploring as a council today. That's what I'd lead the mission on, as our council working together as a team. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mark. And Scott, let me go to another live viewer question. Do you support Mesa's non-discrimination ordinance?
Do I support it? Well, it's there. It's been there for 3.5 years. And I know there are some people out there that would like to repeal it. There's other people who absolutely say no way. I say this, it's in place. It's been there for 3.5 years. I think we need to look and see how it's going. I'm not aware, and I may be wrong, I'm not aware of any major issues that have come up under Mesa's non-discrimination ordinance since it's been enacted. And that's what I would do. I have no intention of affecting it right now. I'll just look and see how it plays out. So far, I have not seen, or I'm not aware of negatives that have happened because of the non-discrimination ordinance. And if there were something that come up, we deal with it as a council. For right now, it's been there 3.5, 4 years, and I have not seen anything such as that come up.
Okay, Mark, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so as a council, we voted on that. And before we had the non-discrimination ordinance, we had no discrimination issues in our city, and we don't have them today either. So having the ordinance, I voted no on that because I felt that we could do a better job on the ordinance in itself. And we moved forward with that. And today, it's a great working principle that we have in our community. And we embrace that. We have a non-discrimination office in our community to take any discrimination issues. So today there's no issues whatsoever with that.
Gentlemen, time is running out rapidly. It's just flown. We have about 10 minutes left, though. So I want to go to one more live viewer question, then I've got a couple more I want to ask you. Scott, let me start with you on this one. Many of the citrus groves are being developed, which affects the unique character of the citrus area. What would you do as mayor to help protect the citrus sub-area of the city?
Well, having grown up in the citrus area and lived in the middle with 25 navel orange trees on my house lot for 25 years, I lament the fact that the citrus area, there's two realities. I would love to preserve as much as we can of Mesa's history and Mesa's culture. But as I said, I had 25 navel oranges. That's a blessing that everyone in this world should be able to enjoy. When I moved a year ago and downsized, I had 2 left. The other 23 had died off because they aged out. And one of the big problems we have in our citrus areas, many of these trees are now reaching 60, 70, 80 or plus, and they're just going to age out. There is no citrus industry anymore. And it's one of the, Mark and I were talking before about things in Mesa that we love that have sort of passed on. And I say that we do the best we can to preserve the citrus legacy. But the reality is like humans, trees grow old and citrus trees grow old, and many of them are non-sustainable simply because they grow out. And I lament that, but I have to accept that fact. So that's always an issue, and you work with developers. Like I said, I developed in citrus groves. I maintained as many trees as I possibly could. I've asked others to do the same, but we have to be realistic and realistic as to where we are in their life cycle.
Mark, your thoughts on that?
Well, that's kind of in my wheelhouse, Steve, because my uncle is a citrus farmer. Well, he used to be, and the family still farms citrus today. So to me, it's just, I would like to preserve all of our citrus and keep those neighborhoods. And so I have citrus trees today on my property, and it's nice to walk out and eat an Arizona sweet and then a navel orange later in the year because they both mature at different times. But the citrus sub area out in part of it's in my district, actually almost all of it's in my district, is we want to preserve the citrus trees. And some of the trees, as Scott mentioned, I know some of the groves are over 100 years old. And so with that, they do age out. But what I've encouraged the developers is please place trees around the perimeter of your neighborhoods, and it creates a buffer. And trees are great because trees absorb carbon dioxide and convert it into oxygen. And so they provide a beneficial use to our community. And Mesa was known for its agricultural, and citrus was part of it. And I want to preserve and have worked, again, I'll be redundant with our developers in keeping as many citrus as possible. In fact, there'll be some out in the Val Vista and Thomas area, putting some trees out there with the development that's coming. So yes, trees get old, we get old, but at the end of the day, trees are essential to our society. So I like trees.
So Steve, if I could real quick, I have one more story that reminds me. This is where experience matters. There was a community, I live Brown Road area, citrus, and the city itself unwittingly was actually helping to destroy because there was a development that came in and the city wanted to expand a Brown Road from 2 lanes on each side to 3 lanes, which would have taken out an entire road of citrus, entire row. And I went to the city, having developed projects. I said, let's look at the traffic. We were able to convince our streets to not take that extra lane. We saved it. We as a trade-off to the developer, we had them commit to 3 rows of citrus as a buffer, which created a wonderful citrus buffer, preserved our heritage, and actually saves the city because we now no longer have to maintain a whole lane of traffic of asphalt, which cost a lot of money, and it gave us no benefit to add that lane of traffic. But sometimes we're our own worst enemies as a city, and I'd like to use that experience to help protect things and have quality development.
Okay. And Mark, like I said, this is another example of whiplash. We go from citrus trees. I have one question to ask you about. There's a measure on the state ballot that would attempt to crack down on undocumented immigrants. It's Prop 314. So my one, I guess, fairly simple question of a complicated issue is, has undocumented immigration had a negative effect on Mesa when it comes either to the economy or to crime?
It has not. Very simple. I can just share with you, being involved at the city level, everything has been working very well. We don't have any undocumented aliens that come into the city and then they deploy. If they do come in the city, I know that some of the nonprofits have taken them in temporarily and then they leave our community. But overall, everything's been working great.
Scott, is that a concern to you for Mesa?
It has not been a concern. We monitor this, and we find that the undocumented community is in many ways no different than regular people. They don't commit crimes higher than others. There are stories you hear, and there are issues. There are problems. There's no doubt our southern border is a complete mess. It has been for decades. and it's worse now. And I'm not going to say there's not a problem. There's not an issue. Yes, but our first priority is to keep the citizens of Mesa safe, and that will be our emphasis in the police department and public safety. Is that we don't care where you came from, why you're here, as long as the neighborhoods are safe. And if you break the law, we're going to arrest you. If you are a law-abiding person while you're here and it's safe, we're going to focus on those people that are making the communities unsafe. I don't see how this initiative or anything else will change that, and it really won't. It's like many of the other initiatives that were thrown on by the legislature. It's a nothing burger as it relates to the city of Mesa. It's not going to change, in my view, how we deal with the problem, which is and how we deal with the real issues, which are the safety of our citizens. And regardless of this issue, that's not with that initiative or that referral, it's not going to change.
Mark, you want a quick comment on that?
Well, Proposition 314, I know the intent was, our legislators felt like the federal government wasn't doing their due diligence at the border. And so consequently, they're asking the voters to approve 314 to help do enforcement on illegal immigration that if you don't go through a port of entry. And I get that. But today, there are no real issues in our community in Mesa, even though I know our community has illegal undocumented aliens, and they keep to themselves. They don't want to be arrested. They don't want to be deported. They want to earn a living and send their monies back to their other countries of origin. At the end of the day, Mesa is a welcoming city. We're not going to go out and enforce those laws unless somebody is breaking rules or crime. So with that, I'll end with that, Steve.
Right, Scott, we're down to just a couple of minutes. And so I want to close with this question, or maybe a two-part question here. Both of you have been involved off and on with Mesa government for years. Mark, a little bit more recently, but Scott, obviously you had a long stint as mayor as well. One of you would be succeeding Mayor John Giles, who's been in office for quite a while, as we know. Scott, let me start with you. In a minute or less, please, if you can, based on the time we have, what do you think of the job he's done as mayor?
Well, I love everything John Giles did that built upon the successes that I started. I mean, if you're in office and you're a leader, you build upon things that happened before you and those that came before you. And I think the city has been economically, growth-wise, investment-wise, educationally, some of the things they've done has done a good job over the last 10 years. I think most citizens of Mesa are pleased with their city, and they feel safe in their city. And that's an attribute to the leadership of the city. The good thing about me running for mayor now is this is not a reclamation project. I just want to take what we have now and build a better Mesa, do things better, improve things, continue the upward swing, and fix those things that are challenging. And we've talked about some of the things where we have real challenges. But I believe that the city is headed in a good direction. I believe its best days are ahead of us. And to that, I attribute the combined city leadership, not only the last 10 years, but the last 30 years, because Mesa has generally been a very well-governed, well-run city. It can always do better, and I would like to continue that.
And Mark, what are your thoughts about the tenure of Mayor Giles?
He's my chairman of the board and as mayor, and he has done a remarkable job. I appreciate working side by side with him. And I know his family very well. In fact, just a caveat, his dad was my school principal back in the day when we went to... That
can be good or bad, though, right?
Yeah, it was. I didn't get any swats or anything, so I was good back at Webster School. However, I know that as we transition from Mayor Giles to either Mayor Freeman or Mayor Smith, the vision and continuity in our city will continue and we will grow. My vision is I understand and know Mesa very well, having lived here my whole life and having generational roots here. And I continue to I will take Mesa, and this is working as a team, as council members. We have to work together. It's not about me, it's about us. And my attributes are, I've responded to over 64,000 calls of service in the city of Mesa in our neighborhoods. And that resonates with me. It resonates with our neighborhoods. They know that I work for them. And as a mayor, I will work for the people of Mesa, our business community, making sure we have great economic development. And we continue to work hard and with each other. I'll stop there.
Gentlemen, I'm looking at the clock on the wall. It is time for closing statements. And in reverse order from our opening statements, Scott Smith, you have 1 minute for a closing statement, please.
Thank you, Steve. And once again, thanks to the Clean Elections for this opportunity. As you said, this is a great opportunity for the citizens of Mesa to choose who their next leader will be. I would say that one thing, there is a difference between Mark and I. I have a great deal of respect for Mark, but there's a difference in our background and our experience and our leadership. There's also a difference in that with me, you have a proven track record. You know what I've done because I did it as a mayor for 6 years, or 6, I believe, very successful years. Although the challenges and the opportunities have changed, the principles of leadership continue. And what I did before and what I was able to accomplish working with the council, working with staff, working with the community, we'll do again. That's not just an idle promise. I have a proven record to say that I will work and do my best to build a better Mesa, and that there is a difference. And I hope that when you look at that difference, you notice that Scott Smith will be the best leader going forward for the city of Mesa. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Mark Freeman, you have 1 minute for your closing statement.
Well, I kind of just mentioned that before, but let's finish up with this. You know, I currently on the city council, I understand where our city is at and the direction is. In all due respect, Scott and I, we do have a difference. He was the mayor 10 years ago, and our city has moved fast so forward that we continue to work together. And I understand and work with our neighborhoods and what the concepts are, especially our city staff. The city of Mesa is an employer over 4,700 individuals, and I respect that, having worked for the city. I understand what it takes to move our city forward. I will work together with our council members to make sure that the city of Mesa is the best city in the United States. We're the 36th largest city, and we continue to stand out in everything that we do. So I would hope that the voters would vote for Mark Freeman for Mesa Mayor, and I stand ready to serve you. Thank you.
And that concludes our debate. Mark, Scott, really great to have you with us. Thanks for taking part. We appreciate your time. And to the voters, we thank all of you who took the time to watch the debate and inform yourselves about Mesa's 2 mayoral candidates before the November 5th election. We encourage you to visit azcleanelections.gov. That's azcleanelections.gov for official, accurate voting information. I'm Steve Goldstein. Thanks again for joining us.